Bonjour, good day. I want to start off with some remarks and then I look forward to your questions. New Democrats envision a healthcare system that's ready for you and your family when you need it. We imagine that when people need their knee or hip replacements, they don't have to wait for months and months to get that surgery. That people can go into an emergency room knowing that they'll get the care they need without having to wait hours and hours, if not days, to get that care. Where children are able to get access to health care and parents aren't left worried that their children are struggling to breathe or unable to get care. And that people can access a family doctor no matter where you live in this country. We believe in a publicly funded universal healthcare system. Sadly, people aren't able to access that right now. We're faced with a healthcare crisis. And the major issue that has been identified by the experts and healthcare professionals is a lack of healthcare personal resources. We don't have enough healthcare workers. And the solution to this healthcare crisis is to hire more healthcare workers, to recruit, to retain, and to train more healthcare workers. That's the solution. That's what we need to do. The privatization, the for-profit approach is not going to make things better. In fact, it's going to make things worse. The for-profit privatization, the American-style healthcare system that Doug Ford and Daniel Smith are proposing, it's only going to make things worse. It's going to cannibalize from the public system, public ER doctors and nurses, and other healthcare practitioners are going to be cannibalized into a for-profit private clinic. That's not going to make things better. It's not going to increase the number of healthcare workers. The cost is going to go up, and we know that's the case. We've seen it again and again with private for-profit delivery. Costs go up, and the quality goes down, and we saw that with long-term care homes. Now, while I'm not surprised that the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre are celebrating this approach and supporting this, this is a play out of their playbook. They believe that we starve the healthcare system and then come up with an excuse that we need the private for-profit to come in and save it, which is completely false. But I am surprised that Justin Trudeau now is applauding and supporting Doug Ford's for-profit privatization. It's a major flip-flop. Not 2 years ago, less than that, he came out very critical of Aaron O'Toole for his for-profit privatization schemes. He was very critical of it, and now he's supporting the very thing that he opposed before in a major flip-flop. New Democrats have a very different position than Liberals and Conservatives on this. We believe we need to go in one direction, which is to invest in our public universal healthcare system, hire more healthcare workers, and defend the system we have so no one has to worry about the cost of healthcare. And we build a healthcare system for the next, not just couple of years, but the next decade that is public and universal. And the Conservatives and Liberals want to go in a different direction. They want to support the privatization and for-profit delivery of healthcare. They think that's innovation, and they want to build a system that's more like an American-style private for-profit healthcare system. We disagree. We oppose that. And that's why we're calling for an emergency debate today, because really what's at stake is a turning point in our healthcare system. The decisions we make today will define the type of healthcare we have in the next decade. And New Democrats believe those decisions have to be in the interest of people. It has to be public and universal. It shouldn't matter how much you earn or how much you make. Everyone should get access to the best quality care, and that's what we're fighting for. And those are the stories that we're going to share when we push for the emergency debate today. Donc, je vais parler de système de santé. Et dans notre pays, notre vision, ce qu'on envisage pour le système de santé, c'est un système qui est là pour vous et votre famille quand vous avez besoin. Ça veut dire que vous pouvez avoir accès aux opérations si vous en avez besoin. Pour les enfants, vous ne devez pas attendre, les parents des enfants n'ont pas besoin d'attendre pour des longtemps pour recevoir des services ou accès des services dans les centres d'urgence. Malheureusement, ce n'est pas le cas maintenant. Maintenant, on a une crise dans notre système de santé. Et tous les experts sont d'accord, le grand problème dans cette crise, c'est une pénurie des travailleurs de santé. Donc, on doit augmenter les nombres des travailleurs de santé. Ça, c'est le but pour défendre le système et régler le problème. Et la privatisation à but lucratif de notre système ne va pas régler les problèmes. effectivement l'opposé. Et ça va empirer les problèmes parce qu'on a besoin de plus de travailleurs. Une approche de privatisation à but lucratif va cannibaliser les travailleurs dans le système public. Ça va augmenter les coûts, ça va réduire la qualité. Et on a vu ça dans les centres de soins de longue durée. Je ne suis pas du tout surpris que les conservateurs comme Pierre Poilievre et les premiers ministres conservateurs appuient cette approche. Ils ont toujours voulu avoir plus de services privés pour créer plus de profits pour les entreprises privées et de créer un système de santé américaine au Canada, un système à but lucratif. On oppose ce système. Mais je suis surpris que Justin Trudeau appuie aussi cette approche de privatisation à but lucratif. Parce qu'il y a 2 ans, quand il a critiqué cette même approche de Erin O'Toole, l'ancienne chef conservateur, et il était clair que c'était une mauvaise approche. Et donc, dans une volte-face majeure, maintenant, elle appuie la privatisation à but lucratif. Elle a dit que c'était innovante, cette approche. On a tout à fait, on n'est pas d'accord, pas du tout, avec cette approche. On a une direction complètement différente des libéraux et conservateurs. On pense que notre système de santé doit aller dans une direction où on augmente les travailleurs de santé. On investit dans les services publics. Et les libéraux et les conservateurs veulent investir dans un système américain privatisé à but lucratif. Ça, c'est pourquoi on demande un débat d'urgence aujourd'hui pour parler de la crise et partager les histoires des travailleurs de santé et des familles qui demandent des investissements dans notre système public. Parce que ce qu'on fait aujourd'hui, les décisions qu'on prend, va définir le système de santé, va bâtir le système de santé, pas pour les prochaines années, mais pour la prochaine décennie. Et on veut voir un système qui est là pour tout le monde et un système public et universel où ça ne dépend pas sur votre salaire ou combien d'argent vous avez dans la banque, mais tout le monde a accès à des services excellents pour les soins de santé. Merci. With that, I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Monsieur Singh, j'aimerais vous entendre au sujet de ces demandes de démission qui se multiplient concernant la nouvelle personne nommée pour la lutte contre l'islamophobie par M. Trudeau, Mme Elghawaby. Plusieurs demandent sa démission. Est-ce que vous êtes l'un d'entre eux? Si oui ou sinon, pourquoi?
Non, elle a clarifié ses remarques. Et je suis d'accord que l'islamophobie, ce n'est pas un problème d'une province. C'est un problème qui existe à travers le pays. Clairement, c'est une vraie menace. Et maintenant, il y a un jour, on a commémoré l'attentat à Québec, à la mosquée Québec. Et c'est des impacts réels dans les vies des communautés musulmanes. Le fait que les musulmans sont tués à cause de leur religion, c'est une réalité, quelque chose qui s'est passé au Canada. Donc, c'est quelque chose qu'on doit régler. Donc, ma priorité, c'est de reconnaître que c'est un problème à travers le pays et qu'on fait le travail nécessaire pour défendre les gens.
Dans la mesure où elle a fait plusieurs déclarations, dans la mesure où elle a fait plusieurs...
You want it in English as well?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. I'll do a follow-up and then English.
So follow up first?
Oui, oui.
Okay. Dans la mesure où elle a fait plusieurs déclarations, Mme Elghawaby, qui divisent, est-ce que M. Trudeau n'aurait pas dû nommer quelqu'un d'autre? Quelqu'un qui n'a pas fait de telles déclarations?
Je pense qu'elle a clarifié sa position et je suis aussi d'accord que c'est clairement un enjeu, un problème national, un problème qui existe à travers le pays. Effectivement, c'est un problème qui existe dans les autres pays aussi. C'est important qu'on reconnaisse que c'est un problème et qu'on fait le travail nécessaire maintenant pour régler ce problème. On the question of the nomination of the individual for fighting Islamophobia, my position is, first of all, she's clarified her remarks, and I agree that the problem of Islamophobia is a problem across the country, not just one province. It's clearly a problem across the country. And the results of that problem are people lose their life. Islamophobia has been directly connected to the Quebec killing in the the mosque in Quebec. We've seen loss of life and attacks against Muslim communities across the country, in Toronto and in London. We saw a community that was shocked with the death or the killing of an entire family, also based on hatred towards Muslims. So this is a real problem, and we need to get down to the work of solving it.
What do you think an emergency debate would accomplish?
We've heard from thousands of Canadians, and I've just got off of a week of roundtables with healthcare workers who are pretty desperate right now, who are saying that we are up against a really serious problem in our healthcare system. And they've identified the problem being there's not enough healthcare workers. And given how serious that is, and given that the federal government and Prime Minister Trudeau have done this major flip-flop on privatization and for-profit delivery of care, we need to share those stories. We need people to know what Canadians are going through, the long wait times in emergency rooms, and the healthcare workers who are feeling burnt out, and the healthcare workers who shared with me stories of going into work and breaking down, knowing that they're not going to be able to deliver the care that they were trained to deliver, and leaving work, again breaking down, knowing that they didn't deliver the care that they were trained to deliver because they didn't have enough resources. We need to hear those stories, and we need to lay out a path where we solve the problem. And the problem that we're up against will not be solved with an American-style, for-profit approach to healthcare that Doug Ford and Daniel Smith are proposing, and now Prime Minister Trudeau is celebrating and supporting and calling it innovation when it's only going to make things worse. And I think it's very important for people to hear the stories of those Canadians, of those healthcare workers who are saying, we need help, and that help is not privatization.
Next week, the premiers.
One follow-up and then I'll go.
Next week, the premiers are coming to Ottawa to talk about health transfers. Is there anything that you need to see in that deal between the federal government and the provinces to deem it acceptable? And are there any non-negotiables that you've told the Prime Minister needs to be in those different deals?
The fundamental thing that we want to see in this deal is that we solve the healthcare crisis that we're in, and the deal will be a failure if it doesn't include major commitments to hire more healthcare workers. That has to be a fundamental part of the deal, and that's what we'll be pushing for. Solving the healthcare crisis we're in by hiring, training, recruiting, ensuring we've got enough healthcare workers. That's got to be the number one piece in the deal.
Two separate topics. I'll ask first question. Just when's the last time you spoke to the Prime Minister about the supply and confidence agreement? And give me your sense as we begin the sort of winter sitting, how are things? Is it stable? Are you seeing what you wanted to see with this agreement? What's the snapshot of that, and when's the last time you spoke to the PM about it?
Sure. Last time we spoke was before the end of session, last session, so December, late December or mid-December. And we have another meeting scheduled for today. The deal so far, we've been able to force the government to do things that we think are going to help Canadians out, and we've been able to bring in dental care for kids under 12. We were able to double the GST rebate, something that was actually outside the deal, but we were able to use our position to make happen. That helped out nearly 10 million Canadians with up to $467 back in their pockets. And we were able to get about 2 million Canadians a top up of $500 for their rent. So we were able to deliver meaningful things for Canadians. So far, we're able to force the government to follow through on things that we've got them to agree to. And we're looking forward this year in this new session to continue with that. And we're going to start with making sure we've got supports for our healthcare system, broadly speaking, expanding our dental care to include kids 18 under, teenagers, seniors, and people living with disabilities. A bill on pharmacare, so we can move forward with a legislative framework for pharmacare, and other things that we've forced the government to agree to. So far, things are we've been able to be successful in getting people help, and we'll continue to do that.
Do you
Can I just ask on a different topic, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure.
Can I just ask on a different topic, if you wouldn't mind? Tomorrow in British Columbia, the BC government is going to begin its pilot project to decriminalize those with small amounts of drugs. I wonder what the voters in Burnaby South think about that. Do you support this program? Minister Bennett is, I think, speaking to reporters out there right about now. Where are you on this decriminalization program?
Well, I've been one of the first voices at the federal level to say that we need to take a different approach to the toxic drug supply and the opioid crisis and to addiction in general. And so I've long supported the approach of decriminalization, but I also want to add in that alone is not enough. We also need to see supports. So the federal government, Prime Minister Trudeau, promised mental health resources years ago and has not delivered on that promise. What I've said and I maintain is that not only do you need to take a compassionate approach to someone that's dealing with an addiction, someone who's dealing with mental health, all the other reasons why someone might be caught up in the opioid crisis or in the toxic drug supply. We need to provide them with a compassionate response, which means not putting them through the criminal justice system, but also means giving them access to rehabilitation and support services. And that's why that funding for mental health is so important. People need to be able to get into a rehab spot, and it has to be it's publicly funded, so it doesn't cost someone so much that it's prohibitive. People can't even get access to care. That's got to be also added in to the solution. And in addition, dealing with homelessness. The problem of the toxic drug supply requires a multifaceted approach, but it's got to be founded in compassion and the goal of keeping our community safer and helping people save their lives. And it certainly means a healthcare approach, not a criminal justice approach. And that's something I've long called for.
Mr. Singh,
Do you agree
Mr.
that
Singh, do you
Canada feels
support-
broken?
We'll go to you.
Do you agree that Canada feels broken or is broken?
I believe that there are problems that we need to fix. I don't believe that Canada is broken, but I certainly believe that Canadians are frustrated because things aren't working out. We've got a healthcare system that needs help and needs some serious intervention. The cost of living is rising, and people are feeling a squeeze when they go in to buy their groceries. People are struggling with the cost of their mortgage. Rent is going up. So there's major challenges Canadians are up against. But there's major solutions that we can provide. If we made these things a priority, there are solutions. And what I want to give Canadians is hope that we can fix these things. We can actually lift people up. We can make sure we invest in building more homes that are affordable. We can invest in a publicly funded universal healthcare system that's there for you and your family. We don't have to wait for your surgeries for months and months. You don't have to wait for hours and hours to get care at an emergency room. We can fix these things, and I want people to know that they're entirely possible if we made it a priority, and New Democrats are fighting for that.
With
Mr. Singh,
healthcare
Mr. Singh,
privatization.
should the Canadian government ban university research involving working with scientists in China, especially military research?
Sorry, I missed the question.
Sorry. Should the Canadian government ban Canadian universities working with China on, especially on military research?
Wherever there is a security concern and there is a national security impact, then we should make appropriate decisions to protect our national security and Canadian safety and security. The general principle of working with other countries and finding ways to learn and share knowledge, I think is good, and that's appropriate. But where there's questions of national security, then of course we should be protecting Canadian security and national security.
And as a follow-up, I missed this, but the special representative on Islamophobia, where do you stand in terms of her status and how she should proceed? Should she resign as Somerset?
I did respond earlier, but I'm happy to repeat. She's clarified her remarks, and I agree that Islamophobia is not a problem for one province. It's a problem for the entire country. And we're just coming off the heels of a commemoration of the horrific attack in Quebec City at the mosque, where we see the real impacts of Islamophobia. People in our community are killed, and that's a problem that's happened across the country, where people are literally losing their life because of Islamophobia. So I want us to get to the work of building a community where people are not living in fear because of what they practice or what they believe. And I truly believe that hate is like a fire. If it's allowed to take hold against any one community, it can spread to consume all communities. And we have to take a strong solidarity position against any form of hate. And in this case, Islamophobia is a serious problem that we need to deal with.
But do you
So
think she
votre
should
entente
resign?
avec les
Should she
libéraux,
resign?
monsieur-
No.
Why?
I think she's clarified her remarks and said that the issue of Islamophobia is not relegated to one province or one community. It's a problem for the whole country, and we need to take it seriously.
Do you think this is kind of microaggression, what she's facing right now for past comments, or do you think it's unfair, the scrutiny she's facing right now?
I think for any woman seeing this, they'll look at this and see this looks really familiar. The piling on of on a woman, and particularly a racialized woman, I think is really troubling in general, and in this case, it seems to be problematic, particularly when we're just coming off the heels of a horrific attack that was based on Islamophobia. Like, people were killed while praying in a mosque, a place of prayer, because of their religion, and instead of focusing on those solutions and what we need to do, there seems to be a lot of attention at a time when we should be talking about solutions to the problem.
En français,
Monsieur-
là-dessus, pouvez-vous
oui.
juste répéter en français? Vous trouvez que les gens sont pas fair avec elle?
Je pense que pour les femmes qui voient ce qui se passe avec Madame Elghawaby, que c'est quelque chose qu'ils ont vécu. C'est difficile pour des femmes dans des positions comme ça. C'est difficile pour les femmes qui sont dans la vie politique. Et je pense que c'est souvent injuste l'approche contre les femmes. Et particulièrement quand on doit faire attention à la commémoration à Québec de l'attentat horrible et qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour protéger les membres de notre communauté. Je pense que ça doit être la priorité. Comment on peut protéger les membres de notre communauté qui font face de violences à cause de leur religion.
Vous ne trouvez pas que ça part mal, M.
Juste pour être clair,
Singh, cette relation-là?
Vous dites que si c'était un homme, il y aurait un traitement différent selon vous, une attention différente portée à ses propos tenus dans le passé. Vous avez l'impression que si c'était un homme, ce serait différent, c'est ça?
Je pense en général, pour les femmes dans la vie politique, dans des positions comme ça, l'approche est souvent différente. Et on a vu ça avec mes collègues dans les chambres de commun. Les attaques contre les femmes sont vraiment différentes contre les hommes. Et c'est une réalité qui existe et c'est une réalité qu'on doit changer.
Mais pensez pas que ça part mal la discussion qu'une conseillère en islamophobie ait tenu des propos comme ça? Puis je veux dire, même le ministre du patrimoine dit, moi, comme Québécois, ça m'a blessé. Vous ne trouvez pas que ça part mal la conversation quand même?
Je pense qu'elle a clarifié ses remarques et je suis d'accord que le problème d'islamophobie, ce n'est pas un problème d'une province, c'est un problème national. Et c'est clair parce qu'on a eu des attentats à travers le pays. À Toronto, une des villes les plus diverses au monde, une personne âgée était tuée à cause de son religion. Donc, c'est un problème qui existe à travers le pays. À London, l'attentat qui a tué toute une famille, donc aussi causé par l'islamophobie. Donc, c'est un problème à travers le pays. Et c'est un problème qu'on doit régler.
Concernant votre entente avec les libéraux, Justin Trudeau disait en fin de semaine que les libéraux veulent la même chose que les néo-démocrates. Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec ça? Est-ce que vous avez l'impression que vous allez vraiment obtenir cette session-ci, ce que vous demandez aux libéraux dans le cadre de cette entente-là?
Dans l'entente pour la santé?
Oui.
OK. Non, pas du tout. Non, notre approche est complètement différente. Les libéraux ont une approche où ils ont célébré la privatisation à but lucratif, l'approche de Premier ministre Doug Ford. Ils ont célébré ça. Ils ont dit que oui, c'est bon, c'est innovant. Et on n'est tout à fait pas d'accord. On est complètement on est en désaccord avec les propos de Doug Ford et la vote majeure de Justin Trudeau. Et je veux souligner cette vote majeure parce que on a des vidéos, c'était public, où Justin Trudeau a critiqué Erin O'Toole pour les mêmes choses. Elle a dit que la privatisation à but lucratif, ce n'est pas quelque chose de bon pour notre système de santé au Canada. Il était contre ça. Mais maintenant, il appuie la même chose qu'il a critiqué. Donc, c'est une vote majeure, c'est une différence majeure entre nous et les libéraux et les conservateurs. Et dans ce cas, oui, les libéraux et les conservateurs sont dans la même direction où ils appuient la privatisation à but lucratif et on est contre ça. On pense que notre système de santé doit être public, doit rester public et universel, qu'on doit investir pour augmenter les nombres de travailleurs de santé. Ça, c'est la solution, pas de cannibaliser notre système avec une approche de privatiser à but lucratif qui va voler des travailleurs dans notre centre d'urgence pour des services privés à but lucratif. C'est la mauvaise chose à faire. Donc, c'est une approche complètement différente entre moi et les néo-démocrates et les conservateurs et les libéraux qui ont une approche complètement différente qui va faire mal aux gens, qui va nuire à notre système de santé.
Oui.
With healthcare being provincial jurisdiction, realistically, what can the federal government do to ensure that, you know, any money that goes toward these provinces doesn't go into private for-profit care?
We can enforce the Canada Health Act. The Canada Health Act gives us significant powers and has been used in the past to challenge for-profit privatized care. And it should be used more regularly and more aggressively to protect public health care. Canadians believe in that. They want to defend public health care. So that's one. The Prime Minister talked a lot about conditions. Well, what kind of conditions are they if they don't actually require that our public money, the money that Canadians contribute, goes towards public care? Why would Canadians want our public money to go to enrich a for-profit clinic? It should go towards the best care possible. And when we already have a public system, we should be investing in that system. Why set up a parallel private system that's for-profit that's going to directly impact and hurt our public system? That's the wrong approach. And we disagree with Prime Minister Trudeau and disagree with the Conservatives on this. We think that Canadians want a public healthcare system that's there for them, that has excellent care, and we can achieve that. We have to invest in it.
Is this a deal breaker for you?
That's not a decision we're making today. What we're doing today is we're calling for an emergency debate, really to share the stories of these healthcare workers, to show how this is serious and that this debate is very serious. And the timing of this is right at the eve of a major agreement with provinces, and we think the federal government should be making it very clear that the solution to the current healthcare crisis will not come from a privatization with for-profit delivery of care. It'll only come by making sure we hire, recruit, retain, and respect healthcare workers. That's the solution to the current crisis, and we're deeply concerned that the Liberals are going in the wrong direction on this, a direction that's going to make things worse.
Can I just ask you one quick question about provincial policy?
It's good timing on that one.
Yes, thank you. By the end of this year, there could be a new Democrat premier in Alberta and a new Democrat premier in Manitoba. Given the close ties between your federal and provincial parties, I wonder if it might be part of the federal New Democrat strategy to make sure that at the federal level, it's a period of relative stability this year, i.e. not a general election federally and so on, in order to give those New Democratic parties in Alberta this spring and in Manitoba this fall the best chance of success. Can I draw those lines at all? Is it something you want to talk about?
Well, you can draw the line that I strongly believe that Albertans are better off with Rachel Notley, who's fighting for them, who's going to stand up for them, who stands up for workers, and lets me know every time that energy workers or any other workers are impacted. She makes it clear that her priority is the Albertans, and I think Alberta will be better served with a new Democrat premier. And the same for Manitoba. We can look to BC and see the examples of the different direction they're headed in. They're actually buying private clinics and bringing them into the public system. They're actually bringing workers that were kicked out of the public system back into the public system. And so Canadians can see what you get with New Democrat governments is a focus on the things that Canadians believe in, things that Canadians need. And I absolutely support both those provinces getting the government that they deserve that's going to fight for them and stand up for them.
Last question.
I'll check online, I guess.
If you have a question online, please use your raise hand function to ask your question.
At a good number of questions, I'm happy with it.
Is there anything this sitting that you see you can work with the Conservatives on?
No.